What if you couldn't read the label on your prescription bottle? More than half of older Americans lack the skills to gather and understand medical information. Tonight on The Best Times, we discuss senior illiteracy. And we'll tell you how to overcome your fear of falling. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Over 30 million Americans can't read, and 50% of adults can't read a book written at an 8th grade level. Older Americans are more likely to have difficulty reading than the younger generation. Low literacy can impact every aspect of a senior's life. Digital illiteracy can divide seniors from the rest of the modern world. Health illiteracy can threaten your life if you can't read or understand the label on your medications. Sadly, the problem of senior literacy often remains hidden due to a combination of age and shame. Tonight on The Best Times, we talk with the Executive Director of Literacy Mid-South about solutions to the problem of senior illiteracy. At the East Shelby Public Library, Barbara Salisbury is reading a biography of Harriet Tubman.
This call to freedom hold much dangerous. Holds much danger.
Look at the word. Danger, not
hold much danger. Danger. Okay. Danger. I was young when I dropped out of school. A lot of the language, like verbs, adverbs, adjectives, periods, commas, and this and that, I ain't know nothing about none of them. I got to the 4th grade, but I didn't really learn anything about none of that. I lost out on all that.
Barbara has spent over 50 years of her life as a functional illiterate. And like so many adults who can't read beyond an elementary school level, she hid that fact from the rest of the world.
Didn't know how to write a check. My sister and them had to teach me how to write a check because I didn't know how to do it. And right now, it's kind of hard for me to spell 11. Can you believe it?
6 months ago, Barbara enrolled in Literacy Mid-South's adult learning program. After spending her adult life without an education, she is now motivated to get her GED.
I didn't really think about how important education was, and even though the job that I have now, I've been on there 19 years. When I first went in 2000, they did not ask for a high school diploma or a GED. But now it doesn't matter whether you're 60, 70, 80, 90, you gotta have a high school diploma to work there.
Barbara is tutored by Louetta Berkins, an engineer at FedEx and a volunteer teacher with Literacy Mid-South. After completing a few hours of training, she was able to begin the process of sharing her reading skills with Barbara.
One of the things that we've been working on, which she's really getting better at, is not just reading, but also the comprehension. That's very important, because if she's going to be successful in obtaining that GED, she not only needs to recognize and read words, but she needs to understand what she's reading.
In one grade, oh, I didn't even see that one.
That's okay.
Missed that one.
No, but I just want you to read it in the context.
Okay. In one grade, she helped free others.
That's what I want. Look at that word again.
She helped.
In one raid, she helps free.
Okay, in one raid, she helped free others.
Look at that word. She helps. Look at that second letter. It's not t, it's a v. She helps free.
Oh, she helped free over. Sorry. She helped free over 700 slaves. After the
This
war,
one-on-one teacher-learner relationship requires commitment from both women. But as Louetta points out, the rewards of their relationship benefit both of them.
I think, as I said earlier, that I've always had a heart to give, and I realize that I'm very fortunate to be able to be in a position that I am, being a first-generation college grad, and I have a responsibility, really, to give back.
Barbara is well on her way toward achieving a goal that eluded her so many years ago. In addition to her reading sessions, she's studying with a math tutor. Her only regret is that she didn't come to Literacy Mid-South sooner.
Yes, I wish I'd have done it earlier. Because now the brain not as good as it used to be, and I ain't young anymore. I'm 68, like I say, and it don't click in. And a lot of the work that, a lot of the schooling that I'm doing now, I don't think they had that back in the day. It'd have been easier if I'd have went on and got it then than it is now, because they say it's getting harder and harder every time. That's the end. That's the end.
In order to discuss literacy, I think perhaps first we should define it. And from my research, I understand it's not an easy thing to define. What is literacy?
Literacy has sort of a variety of definitions. I think one of the challenging or sort of the exciting challenges that we have at Literacy Mid-South is to put what does low literacy mean into context for those of us privileged to live in the literate world. I think for those of us that do live in the literate world, we define literacy as the ability to read and write. However, the literacy, or the definition of literacy, extends much beyond just the ability to read and write. Really has a lot to do with being able to navigate the complex systems that we have in place in our world so that they can lead sort of the fullest and most productive lives possible.
So that they can be functionally literate.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
They don't have to have a PhD, but be functionally literate.
Correct.
Well, let's talk specific about senior literacy. How serious is the problem of senior low literacy here in Memphis?
For sure. Right now in Memphis, 1 in 7 adults read at or below a 6th grade reading level. And I'm not familiar on exactly how many, or what the exact population number is for seniors in Shelby County are, but I think we could reasonably assume that about 1 in 7 of seniors are currently facing low literacy here in Shelby County.
That's a huge number.
It's a startling figure, yes.
Tell me how, we're talking about people who are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're functionally, not functionally literate. How have they been able to get through life for that period of time?
I think as humans, we're very good at working around our problems than working through. Especially think of children. A lot of students are very good at masking and hiding certain deficiencies that they may be experiencing in school, and that can have a sort of stacking effect as they progress through their educational career and then wind up to be 50, 60 years old. We have a lot of learners that come to us that have family members that assist them through, whether that be filling out a job application. Let's say they go to a doctor and they can walk up to the counter, and rather than being able to work through the stack of papers that's been handed to them, tell the receptionist, I forgot my glasses at home. Can you help me read through this and fill out this paperwork? And so I think we have a lot of individuals that are able to get by and have learned skills to try to exist in the literate world that most of us are fortunate to be a part of.
So obviously, if they are clever enough to pull that off, they're certainly clever enough to be able to learn how to read. What has kept them, adults, from doing that?
I think one of the biggest factors, there's of course a lot of factors that a lot of adults face, but one of the biggest is the stigma. I think, as we get older in life, that's it takes it's a very humbling moment to come to us and say, I need help reading when you're 50, 60, 70 years old. You've also been able to get by. And as you get older, it gets harder to mask and to hide some of those deficiencies, and the need for being able to navigate a lot of these systems becomes even greater. I think when we're thinking about the stigma that comes with this, a lot of individuals are afraid that, it's whether it be family dynamics that may be at stake, whether it be their job may be in jeopardy if this is something that they admit. If you've been working a job for 20 to 30 years, you probably don't want to go to your employer and say, I don't know how to read. So I think really if we're trying to get at the heart of the issue, destigmatizing this for adults will really help a lot of individuals feel empowered to receive these services.
Let's talk about a specific area that applies to seniors specifically, and that is health literacy. First of all, define it for me, and how serious is that problem?
It's very serious. Health literacy is generally defined as the ability to obtain, gain access, comprehend any and all health services. I think, going back to talking about literacy being the ability to read and write, I think it's pretty easy for us to understand how that may play a role in one's ability to receive the proper health care. Let's say you go to the doctor, you need to be able to fill out the required forms, or you need to get health care. There's a lot of forms and paperwork that goes into that. But I think the other part that's not often considered is when you are struggling with low literacy, the ability to go and understand everything that your doctor's telling you, most likely in a very stressful situation, and to be able to comprehend that and take it home and act on it can be very difficult for a lot of individuals. And if we also try to apply that beyond just doctor visits, think about going to the pharmacy. A lot of us are able to go to the pharmacy, and we're fortunate enough to be able to pay for a prescription, go home and read the prescription label and figure out, do I take this before bed? Do I take this when I wake up? For a lot of individuals who are dealing with low literacy, they're going to have to sit down with their pharmacist and hope that their pharmacist has enough time to slowly and methodically go over all the details for their prescription, and hope that they're going to remember that and when they go home. And if you're taking multiple prescriptions, those pills can they can look very similar, and so that can be very difficult for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, obviously you have the opportunity there for overdose, or perhaps using two medications that just don't mix very well. So we're seriously talking here about death that can result from simply having low literacy.
I think, medical technology's gotten us to the point where life expectancy is much higher than it ever has been. And I think that's probably only really true for those of us fortunate to live in the literate world, and that we're able to gain access to the proper healthcare system, and we're able to not only gain access, but then utilize the healthcare system to use that medical technology to our benefit.
Take me into a learning session. What is that session like? What's the curriculum like?
So a lot of our learners, they come to us and they typically have a very large goal in mind. For instance, would be obtaining their GED. While that is a great and wonderful thing and something we certainly want to work with them towards, if they are reading at about a second or third grade reading level, which is the vast majority of adult learners that come to us are reading at, it's going to take them a long time to be able to even qualify for a GED class. So what we try to do is break down that goal into smaller, more obtainable goals along the way, whether that be getting a driver's license, whether that be going over some healthcare forms that they may need. We try to empower our volunteer tutors to be able to adapt to the learner's needs and be able to work with them on very real life scenarios so that they can not only obtain the skills that they need, but also be able to acquire and work on some of these things like health literacy that we've discussed.
Sounds like a very practical approach.
Exactly.
Let's talk about, you mentioned volunteers. Let's talk about volunteers. Who volunteers?
We have volunteers starting at 18 all the way up to 75. I would say the vast majority of our volunteers are retired teachers. However, I think a lot of individuals, when they come to us and when we're talking with them, the idea of working one-on-one with an adult learner can be, I think, can be scary. A lot of individuals feel that they need to have a teaching background in order to effectively serve adult learners. However, that's really not the case. And we while mentioning that we, try to work on very practical skills with our adult learners, anyone can have an impact and play a big role in an adult learner's journey to becoming fully literate.
Let's talk about feedback. What feedback do you get from the volunteers in performing their service? What feedback do you get from the learners?
From our volunteers, it's really an awesome experience for myself to hear their stories. I think a lot of them come in pretty apprehensive, scared that they're not going to be fully ready to get all the skills necessary for their adult learner. And one of the things that they learn is that this is really a learning experience both for themselves as well as their learners. They end up learning a lot about themselves, and I think gaining an understanding of how privileged too we can be to live in the literate world. I think, going back to, we think of literacy as really just the ability to read and write. And once they spend time with our adult learners, they really gain a sense of the major impact that literacy can have just beyond the ability to read and write. I think really puts into perspective how fortunate they've been, and a lot of things that they can often take for granted. It can really be an awesome experience for them. For our learners, I think, again, it's really going back to understanding how literacy plays a role in so many different facets of their life, whether that be, obtaining and gaining access to health care, whether that be opening a bank account, whether that is getting a driver's license or filling out a job application. I think a lot of our learners come to us and understandably so, thinking very practically about the skills that literacy can provide them, and whether that be obtaining a GED, but then quickly learn how literacy can play a big part in gaining confidence and really empowering them to do things they never expected to do. Recently thinking of one of our learners, and a story that he shared was, before he came to us, going out to eat was a stressful situation for him. Not being able to read a menu did not make going out to eat a very enjoyable experience. Usually had to order what someone else already ordered. But, and we had sort of a volunteer learner appreciation party out at a restaurant, and after the skills that he acquired, he felt empowered to start going out to restaurants on his own. And I think really thinking about it from that perspective, I think it's really, really incredible, and just getting to hear that an individual felt confident enough to go out to a restaurant to eat really puts into perspective what a lot of our learners can accomplish.
And I think it also proves that you're never too old to learn.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Most of our learners do come to us at that 40, 50 years of age. And, I think it's, when you think about things like going out to eat and that being a barrier in someone's life, that's sad. And we're really excited to hear of these success stories for them.
Well, Knox, thank you for being on The Best Times and talking about senior literacy.
Thank you.
For more information about literacy programs for all ages, go to the website of Literacy Mid-South. For many older Americans, the fear of falling is very real, and that fear can increase the risk of falls. Statistics from the National Council on Aging reveal that every 13 seconds, an older adult is treated in the emergency room for a fall. And every 20 minutes, a senior dies from a fall. But there are ways to protect yourself and overcome your fear of falling. How big is the problem of falls?
The problem is huge. A third of adults over age 65 are going to fall annually.
The financial cost, direct medical, is about $34 billion in the U.S. population.
It's the leading cause of ER visits, emergency room visits in this population. And it's also one of the leading causes of accidental death in the geriatric population.
Who is at risk?
The people who are at risk for falls, who have the highest risk, are the people who don't take risks. And when we think about that in our older adult community, those are our shut-ins. People who are at home, maintaining themselves in their house. They may be fully independent there if they have an external assist, but they're not taking that activity and that time to get out of the home.
Both men and women are equally at risk. The sequelae of the fall might be slightly different. When a man falls, unfortunately, his rate of death increases. When a woman falls, her rate of fracture increases.
Is age a factor?
Age itself is not a factor, but what you do as you age, I believe, is a factor.
As we get older, the rate of falling increases, as does the injuries associated with the fall.
How can falls be prevented?
So, two major things. A, it can be internal by making the person stronger, or B, external by modifying the environment. So, exercise is imperative.
When we look at types of activities that may reduce falls or reduce the risk of falls, the key component seems to be a balance component. One of the activities that seems to be the gold standard is Tai Chi.
So we need to do balance exercise, strengthening exercises, coordination, endurance, and even cognitive exercises.
What dangers exist in the home?
What we see oftentimes is the carpet is a little bit frayed, and there are some perhaps throw rugs on the floor or cords on the floor that someone might trip over. Those all should be addressed.
Is there sufficient lighting that you know where you are in your environment and you can become aware of your environment?
People also tend to, when their balance diminishes, they tend to become furniture walkers. Well, they're the ones that walk around and kind of touch every piece of furniture or the wall in a certain place. And sometimes the furniture might move, and that becomes a hazard.
The other thing with slips in walking around your own home or your own environment is, do you have a clear path? Otherwise, you're starting to become aware of, how do I avoid all these pieces? And you become more fearful.
Does fear of falling increase the risk of falling?
The fear of falling and falls themselves seem to have a downward spiral, where you have fear, so you reduce your activity, which reduces your capability, which makes you at more risk for fall, which increases your fear, and you have this downward cycle. So being active and having an activity choice really seems to improve quality of life, reduces the risk of falls.
The slow, methodical movements of Tai Chi may contrast sharply with the common image of an exercise activity, but numerous studies have shown its effectiveness in fall prevention, in some cases reducing falls by up to 45%. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control has singled out Tai Chi as a prescribed exercise program to prevent falls and control the fear of falling. Sheila Ray and Richard Link teach Tai Chi and know the value it has in fall prevention.
Tai Chi has the ability of the stepping helps prevent fall prevention by shifting the weight from one leg very slowly to the other leg.
The slow, controlled movements of Tai Chi help build strength in the internal muscles in the core and the stabilizer muscles.
It helps with situational awareness. The first thing we talk about in Tai Chi is posture and breath and where your foot is going, where your hand is going. So it involves your mind as well as your body.
It's really going to help people with being upright, stable, their posture, and also help them with getting rid of the fear of falling.
There are 5 different types of Tai Chi. Richard and Sheila teach the Sun style, which promotes mobility and agility, and it can be performed either standing or seated. But as Sheila points out, the real value of Tai Chi for older adults goes beyond good posture and balance.
I think more than anything, Tai Chi gives people confidence, and backed by the research, we know that it is good for fall prevention.
For more information about fall safety, go to the website of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.